Welcome to Spirit's Journey, coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio and simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. Your hosts are Patrick and Catherine Andrews.
Join us each week as we explore a wide range of metaphysical topics such as dreams, astrology, intuitive readings, and life purpose. You'll receive practical guidance so that you can live your most awesome life.
Learn more about what we do at intuitiveschool.com and connect with us on Facebook at Spirit's Journey Radio. Welcome to Spirit's Journey, coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception, and simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. You can also find us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. We are here in the Heartland, holding the energy for spiritual truth and awareness. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Catherine. Welcome, everyone. We are excited to have another awesome presenter that's going to be at the Reignite Your Light conference in June in Fort Lauderdale. Today we have with us Dee Wallace. And I know you all know she's an internationally known actress, best known for her role as the mother in Steven Spielberg's E.T. In addition, she has appeared on every major network and talk show, including Oprah and The Today Show. Ms. Wallace actually earned her teaching credentials from the University of Kansas, and we are based here in Kansas City, so it's like she's coming home. Based on the principles she found empowering for children. Her work is based on the principles of accepting responsibility and loving ourselves early in life to create the life that we desire. Dee is a strong advocate for accepting our own magnificence and power in a positive, loving way. A child's personality is set between 4 and 7 years of age, which has a direct impact on the creation of their life. And we're going to be talking about that today. So Dee's important message to the world is love yourself beyond anyone or anything else. And love yourself so much that you can't do anything that doesn't make you love yourself more. I love that message. So Dee is also the author of 5 books on the subject of self-creation, conscious creation, the Big E, Bright Light, Getting Stuff, and Wake Up Now. So please check out her awesome books. She has a radio show herself every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, and offers monthly webinars on a variety of creation subjects. Dee is also available for private sessions from her home in Woodland Hills, California. So we are so happy to have you. Welcome, Dee.
Well, I am so happy to be at least this close to good old Kansas City.
I know, right? We're right in the heartland. It is actually a very spiritual, metaphysical place we've found since we've been here the past 7 years. So let's talk about this idea of conscious creation, which a lot of your work is centered around now, Dee. What does the name mean, and what is the focus of conscious creation?
Well, basically, creation is happening all the time, whether you want it to or not, or whether you're conscious of it or not. And my work is based on consciously creating your life. A good example of that is if you watch television, which most of us do to some degree, within 1 hour you can get, at the present moment, around 50 messages of illness and sickness and what you're going to come down with and the medicine you should buy for it, all while you're watching pictures of happy families with dogs and balls running around. What that does to your brain and your energy is go, oh, look, sickness and happiness go together. And if you are not conscious of that message and conscious of the fact that you are holding the intention of wellness in your life, then your brain takes those subliminal messages and go, okay, well, let's get checked out. That makes us happy. And we're really hypnotized around that, especially in this country. I travel a lot, and there's really no place else I go where I watch TV and see the pharmaceutical ads that we have here. So you have to be conscious. You have to be conscious of what you're thinking. You have to be conscious of what you're feeling, because literally they've proven that your thoughts have emotional charges to them, and your heart gives out many, 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 many times stronger electrical signals than your brain does. So your heart is sending out these signals all the time. And the universe has to respond to those signals. So if you're sending out signals of love and joy and peace, the universe will send back that more of that to you for the reality of your life that you are creating from the single signal you send out. If you're sending out hate and judgment and anger, unforgiveness, then the universe will mirror back to you those things in the reality of your life. So, you know the old phrase, God helps him who helps himself. The way we help ourselves is to understand that we are the creators of us, that God in the universe then respond to. But if we don't choose and if we don't commit, then the universe, our reality is created subconsciously or unconsciously by the information or the old stories or the old patterns or the old modeling that we put together when we were very young.
Right. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of, the simple metaphysical truth is that we live in the vibratory universe. So, very simplistically, what we think, what we put out there is going to come back, right?
Yep. Yeah. And, I think the biggest thing that people don't understand, I'm going to call it energy. You can call it God. You can call it the divine force, the creating force. It really doesn't care what the term is. But in the I Am discourses, it explains very clearly that the energy cannot intercede on our behalf. So we are here to learn the responsibility of our own creation, that then God in the universe can come in and partner with us to create.
I really love that message, and I can kind of see, if you look at the energy geographically, it seems like there's some areas of the world where they are working on consciously creating to provide for their basic needs, and I think that we're in an area of the world where there's a lot of materialism, a lot of material accomplishment, but we are really, like you said, with the pharmaceutical ads, we're learning how to really discipline our minds to look within and follow our own truth and not be swayed by all of these forces kind of trying to get our attention and lead us in all these different directions.
Yep. Because whenever we're in reaction, we're out of creation. Whenever we're in reaction, we're usually in fear. And then we put that signal out, and then that gets returned to us again. And I think we're all pretty tired of that pattern and that cycle.
Well, that was actually a quote that you had on your site, and it goes something like, the biggest fear that we face is accepting our own power. So how does that
Yep.
connect to what we're talking about?
Well, because we've been taught from the time we could understand anything not to be too powerful, to give ourselves away. Parents give themselves away. They give themselves up. We do it at work. We're taught, one of the first things a mother teaches her kid when she has somebody over to play is give up your toy and let your friend play with it, right? And it's not a question, if you don't love yourself enough first not to give yourself up, then you go down, and usually the people you're trying to take care of go down too. I mean, even when you fly in an airplane, they tell you put your own mask on first, because if you can't breathe, you can't help your kid, right? So we have to start accepting and claiming our power so that we can really manifest the lives we want, which will show us then that we are safe in creating the lives we want powerfully. But unless you trust that, unless you redirect that brain, and let's face it, we're dealing with many, many, many lifetimes of experiences where we were negatively affected whenever we walked into our power, from Joan of Arc, there's millions and millions of stories that we brought with us about, oh, look, I tried to be powerful knight and I was stabbed to death and I was burned at the stake and I was nailed on a cross. And, we have to literally take that record that keeps playing over and over and over and over in our brains about our power and go, okay, going to take the needle off, put a new record on, and create the groove in that record that I want to believe and play, because as the good book says, as you believe, it will be delivered to you.
I love that analogy of the groove in the record. I love that.
Well, yeah, because, thoughts just keep playing and replaying and replaying and replaying themselves. And we want to take those records off and go, that was my mom's story. That was the church's story. That was my teacher berating me story. Whatever the story is, it's a story now. In this moment right now, it's in the past and it's a story. And you can keep telling your story, but if we keep telling our story and playing the same record with the same groove, we keep creating the same life over and over and over. And welcome to Groundhog Day.
Right. Well, that's such a powerful message. And speaking of fear, one of the things that I've been picking up on is that it seems like a lot of this polarization that we are witnessing in our culture seems to be fear-based, that people seem to be moving more and more toward these extremes on either side, and at the very least, becoming more vocal about those more extreme views. And then it seems like the people in the center tend to get pulled in that direction more. So would you say that with that like love would be the antidote or the cure for fear?
Absolutely. Look, when people ask me about politics, which is really what you're touching on here when you talk about the polarization, mm-hmm. I say, look, if it doesn't resonate with love, I don't vote for it. If it doesn't resonate with love, I know it's not the highest choice, period. And then everything becomes incredibly simple. But, guys, rulers, dictators, people from time immemorial who have wanted to take over and dominate other people for power have used fear to do it, because people react to fear and people don't want fear. So they'll run the other way, even if that way creates more fear. They just want to get away from it. It's like the boogeyman in the closet, right? You stay in bed because you're too afraid to get out. And if you got out of the fear and went and turned the light on and looked, you wouldn't have anything to be afraid of, because you would see there's no boogeyman there.
Right.
So we become reactionary to the fear instead of looking at the facts.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that fear is creating just a lot of illness and sickness in the world, which, we talked about. And yeah. Yep. And so you, I know you're into healing energetic cellularly, and hormones and creation, and some really interesting health concepts. So how are you helping people with energetic cellular healing?
Well, let's just stop and simply look at what science, and if you want to read a great, fabulous book about this, it's Mind to Matter by Dawson Church, who is a scientist. But they have proven scientifically that the highest state of love, which is compassion, when you hold yourself in the state of love and compassion, your telomeres lengthen, your atoms, your molecules become more in balance and heal. Love, according to my channel, which has never been wrong as far as I know, love heals everything and love creates everything. And so instead of fixing the world, which, our brains think in pictures, guys. So let's say somebody's got cancer and all their attention goes on fixing the cancer. But our brains think in pictures. So our brain then feeds the cancer. If we can hold the state of love and feed our bodies with love for wellness, then our bodies can respond to the wellness. And it's interesting. I just actually taught a seminar the other night, and they would not let me use the word health. They said, Dee, when you use the word health, people automatically go to the lack of health that they're in. But if you use the word wellness, the brain sees a higher frequency of wellness in whatever you're talking about, whether it's the world or the body. So, I mean, you see, most of our minds go, oh, come on, that's too easy. Just feel a lot of love and I'm going to have more money. Just feel a lot of love and I'm going to be healthier and live in wellness. I'm going to have a lot better relationships. I'm going to find that guy. And I'm saying yes, it's that easy. And it's a conscious choice to always go, I'm not going to go into reaction. I don't care if I'm right. I trust that I am safe and secure in this world, and I'm going to choose love over everything. I'm going to choose love.
So, do you have maybe a simple technique that our listeners might be able to employ if they find themselves being dragged into that fear mentality or that mob mentality that sometimes gets stirred up out there? How could they bring themselves back to love?
I'll give you the easiest way. Start laughing.
That's great.
Laughter yoga.
I am not kidding you, because it will disengage you from your reaction. And then once you're disengaged from your reaction, you can make a choice. Now, sometimes also what I do is I talk to myself in third person and I'll go, Dee, really? You want to do this? You want to go into this reaction? You want to go into the toilet? But before we flush the toilet that you're so far in right now, let's just state what we know. So this is going to affect your blood pressure. It will affect all of your cells and your wellness. It will push away money from you. It will push away peacefulness. And we know that stress is the main cause of all dis-ease in our bodies and our minds. So by that time, see, I'm laughing at him going, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to crawl out of the toilet now instead of flushing myself down it. And I'm going to make another choice. I'm going to choose love. I choose to feel better.
And that's our real power, right? Is the power to choose which direction we're going to go in.
Yes, I am the power of my choice. I've got it written up here right by my desk. I am the power of my choice. Because, guys, we're on this physical plane, we are our own creators. We create ourselves in our lives by the thoughts we choose or are oblivious to. We create ourselves through the feelings that we feel, through the perceptions, and that's a big one, the perceptions that we allow ourselves to hold. All of that comes from choice. And those choices create the reality of us and the reality of our lives that we live in.
That's great. And I feel like that has so much to do with our longevity as well. I love that image of focusing on wellness. I wanted to retouch on one thing that you mentioned earlier before we get too far away from it, because you mentioned the telomeres lengthening. And I imagine there's probably some of our listeners that may not realize the importance and just how profound that statement is, because the telomeres, if you haven't heard that term before, they're actually these strands of DNA that are on the end of a DNA strand. It's kind of like the end of your shoestring that keeps it from unraveling. And there's a lot of research that has suggested that perhaps because every time your DNA replicates, you lose a few telomeres normally. And so uh, it's been theorized that that's what leads to aging, is that our DNA strands gradually break down. And so things don't function the way that they're supposed to. So by holding this focus of love, we actually can add on to those telomeres, and essentially that just keeps extending the longevity of our physical body, and you can stay healthier and or weller, perhaps. Since we're focusing on
no, healthier is fine. Healthier is fine.
We don't want to dip into bad grammar here,
but absolutely, yeah. Well, I was an English teacher, but they're saying absolutely. My channel is saying absolutely. That's the truth. And our forefathers who went out and worked in nature and worked the farms and touched the animals, they experienced the oneness of love with the universe and the earth. And now we're sitting in front of electrical things all the time. I mean, they have all kinds of studies that prove that all of these high-tech toys are incredibly damaging to a child's brain. Incredibly damaging to a child's brain. And I want to remind everybody that how you see yourself and how you see yourself in the world is embedded in your brain, finished, okay, by 7 years old. So the more interaction you have, personal interaction that a child has, the more their brain says, wow, aren't you a special kid? And then they build on that for the rest of their lives. Now, the channel's yelling at me to bring this up, that if there are listeners out there that are going, well, no wonder I'm so screwed up, look at my childhood. They want to remind everybody that a child chooses who they want to be born into for the lessons that they want to learn in this embodiment. So if you, like I did, picked a family with alcoholism who was very poor and had a lot of challenges, you got to know that you're a pretty great soul. And what I came in to learn then is, and it really helped me, that no matter what happened to me, no matter how drunk my daddy was and how hard every night was at my house, I still had the power to create who I was and to choose what I wanted. So, I'm very clear that I don't want alcohol to be a force in my life, because that takes away my power to create myself. So if you're pointing the finger at anybody or anything and going, see, that's why I can't, you're never going to get the life you want until you turn your finger around, point it to yourself, and go, I'm the answer.
And I think it helps too to keep asking yourself, well, even if it was a bad experience, what did I learn from it? Because if you can grasp any kind of lesson from a situation, then it
turns around into a gift. It's like, oh my gosh, I learned something here.
That's right. And, guys, many, 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 many of us have been abused. So we know we don't want to be abused. So what do we want? We want to be honored and respected and taken care of and feel safe and secure in the world. That's what you want to focus on. Because again, if you say, I don't want to be abused anymore, what does your brain see? It sees abuse. Just think about, if you all think of a little kid like a toddler, and you look at them and go, don't touch the TV. They're going to look at you and smile and walk right over there and put their hand on that TV.
Awesome.
Because all their brain heard was touch and TV.
Well, Dee, we are coming up on the bottom of the hour here, so we are going to continue this conversation on the other side. If you joined us, we are with Dee Wallace. We're having a fascinating discussion here, so we have more right after the break. You are listening to Spirit's Journey on Truth Frequency Radio, simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. See you on the other side. Welcome back to Spirit's Journey. We are coming to you on Truth Frequency Radio, being simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. We are here today with Dee Wallace, having a fascinating conversation, and we are looking forward to the second half.
And Dee is just amazing us with her background. She's an internationally known actress. She is an author of 5 books, international speaker on all kinds of awesome metaphysical topics, and she will also be a presenter at the upcoming Reignite Your Light conference, June 21st and 22nd in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So before the break, Dee, we were talking about children and how their whole brains and everything is formed by the age of 7. So I was curious, you talk on your website about restructuring your childhood brain. So what does that mean and how do you do it?
Well, we've touched on it already a little bit. You restructure all of those limiting messages you got in childhood by being really conscious of what you want now, so that you take that old record off, put a new one on, and create new grooves that you want. I mean, for example, I love the Midwest. When people say, where are you going? I say, I'm going home. Kansas City will always be my home to me. And we do share some values that can tend to limit us professionally if we're not conscious. I was brought up in the Methodist Church in Kansas City. My older brother actually became a minister for a while. And what I was taught was, you never need more than you need, so don't ask for too much. And the humble people inherit the earth, not the important people, not the rich people, not the successful people, the humble people. Now, that's how I perceived the message when I was little. So, cut to me starring in E.T., and all of my energy pulled back when it came out, because I thought, oh my gosh, everybody wants me, everybody wants to interview me, Everybody wants me to be on their TV show now. This isn't humble. And I'm getting all kinds of offers now for bigger money. Well, this isn't humble. And so I literally pulled myself back for years from my own success so that I could match those messages that I was taught made me a good person. And then I started studying spiritual work. I started studying energy. I studied brain science. And I understood finally that all energy is just energy. Energy has to have direction. And I can direct my energy toward anything I want. So I can be humble and I can be filled with love while I'm in the biggest blockbuster of all time and making a lot of money. Because I know my consciousness, I am directing it to do great things through love, through the money and opportunities that come to me, whether it's from my family, from my friends. You know, every movie I do, I tithe to somebody, usually a crew member. I mean, like if I'm on it for any amount of time, and I look around and it's always very easy to find the people who are there, heart-centered, going out of their way to help everybody. In other words, they're living the principles I teach. I tithe to them every movie that I do, every TV show, series that I do. And because I know tithing is one way that we can go, wow, well, there's two things. Look at how much I have and look how I know I'm secure in this world. I'll always have more than enough. I have enough to share. And that's the metaphysical basis of tithing, is that when you know you have enough and you share it, it always comes back to you. My assistant hasn't been with me too long, and she's learning, and she's astounded. She is astounded. Like I said, her reunion's coming up, and I said, I want to buy your dress for you. So we went shopping on the internet, and she looked at me and she said, gosh, Dee, I can't believe that you're buying me my dress for my reunion. And I said, well, but that's resignative. You see, most people think you give, and then someplace else you receive, maybe, if you're lucky. But no, it's a circle, guys. Think of giving and receiving as a big circle. And if you break part of the circle, if you don't give, then part of the circle gets broken and resignative gets out of balance. So we bought her dress, and I'm not kidding, within a half an hour, the exact amount was ordered on my website.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
It's crazy to watch. Crazy to watch.
Now, you brought up an interest. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, you brought up a really interesting point there that I think sometimes people don't think about, because you talk about breaking the circle, but sometimes people don't realize that if you don't receive when somebody's offering, sometimes that can break the circle too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you don't receive, if you go, no, that I'm not worthy, or what, that's self-love. And, guys, the greatest thing you can do for yourself is start loving yourself more. And I hear people going, oh, that's egotistical. But no, when you love yourself as God loves you, it's not egotistical. It's just power through love.
Yeah, that's a really good lesson, because I remember, I think you touched on this a little bit too, but I remember when I was growing up, I was taught to be humble and gracious, and that you give and that you're generous, but that I or at least this was my perception of what I was being taught is, don't receive because you don't want to take from people. It's better to give. And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us may have been taught that. And yeah, that totally disrupts
Well,
the flow of the energy though.
yep. And it's not the way it works. It's the way people understood how it worked from false teachings. But, as far as power and creating miracles, literally in the good book, it says, these things and more will you do also. Go do them. Go be your own creator and create your miracles. But then years and years and years and years and years and years ago, the popes and the rulers, the kings, got together and said, well, gosh, if we let them know how powerful they are, we won't have any power.
Right.
So we better teach them that they've got to go through us if they want to talk to God. Well, not my God. Sorry. My God is within me and I'm within my God. We're all one in the way I understand it from what I've been taught.
I think more and more people are definitely waking up to that. And, it's kind of interesting when we talk about the different energies in different cities. And, you mentioned, some of the beliefs and energy systems in the Midwest. So I was curious, how would you describe, when you got to Hollywood, the energy there in comparison to the Midwest here in Kansas?
I went to New York first, and I think the easiest answer to that question is I always attracted people who were kind, who wanted to help me. I attracted opportunities. I mean, from the time I left Kansas till the time I arrived in the biggest blockbuster of all time was a little over 7 years. That's unheard of in my industry. It's unheard of. But I didn't have any preconceptions that it was going to be hard or I was going to be bad if I created it or I couldn't do it. I just kind of clicked my heels like Dorothy and said, I'm going to go be an actress, right? And so I loved it, and I was raised with a lot of integrity and belief in myself. And so anywhere I go, everywhere I go, I attract energy that supports me and loves me. And so my answer to you is I don't think the energy is any different out here. Now, when you because we all become joined in energy fields, right?
Yes.
And we attract energy fields right now. And I love California because California allows everybody to choose and create themselves. And the consciousness is such that we don't feel like we have to pass laws to make people do what we believe in. For me, that works. So to come back to Kansas right now with some of the laws and things that people are voting on would be difficult for me because the way I look at it, if it is good in your consciousness and in your life to choose abortion, you have the right to do that. You also have a right not to believe in it and to teach your family your own beliefs. But where we get into trouble is that's why the first commandment is judge not. Because if you're constantly in judgment of what everybody else is doing, your focus is on the negative. You become angry. You go into fear because they're doing it that way and you want to do it this way. And nobody wins, guys, from that. Nobody wins, I don't think. Now, I also happen to know that a child picks the family they want to be born into. And I know that no soul leaves without choice, whether it's in the womb, a day old, 101 years old. Nobody leaves without choice. And so I have to honor that choice, however that choice is made. My brother passed away 3 weeks ago by choice. And I have to honor his choice. I have no judgment. I have only love. And again, if we go back to love, you see, separating children from their parents, that does not resonate with love for me. Calling people by horrible names and disrespecting each other does not resonate with love for me. So that's what I use as it's my biggest decision-making bar.
Since you brought up some of the things people are voting for, one of the things we're concerned about, because we follow a natural health path, and so we believe in monitoring our thinking, making sure that our thoughts are in alignment with wellness, and we eat organically, and so we have a big problem with things not being labeled GMO, for example, where we might get that without knowing it. And it isn't that I'm opposed to people having that if they want it, but I just want to be fully informed to make whatever choice I feel is right for me. And now there's this trend of some states that are actually making vaccinations mandatory. And I know this is a very controversial subject, but again, I very strongly believe that we each have the right to choose our own health path, and that
Yep.
if people want to vaccinate, I'm fine with that. I don't want to take vaccinations away from people who want it, but I do have a problem with people mandating it, saying that I have to do it whether I want to or not. And
That seems to be what they're doing with a lot of things.
Right. And yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like basically my philosophy, which has worked really well for me up to this point in my life, is I want to stay away from all medications as much as possible, unless I absolutely need an intervention like that. Because they are artificial chemicals. None of them really were intended for the body. Our bodies evolved over millions of years eating natural foods grown from the planet. So there was nothing in our evolutionary history that mandated artificial chemicals being put in our body. So it's just the I believe just really supporting this idea of free choice. And I don't sometimes it riles me up a little bit, and then I have to slow myself down and say, okay, I believe in the power of my mind to create a clear thought of what I want, and I trust that there will always be a safe place for me to live where I can have the freedom of choice.
Okay, so because the channel's been yelling at me while
right.
you were talking, to bring you back to what you want to focus on, which is what you stated the last two sentences you said. So you have to be conscious not to be judging the medicine, to be in fear of the GMO stuff. What you want to be conscious of is only directing and stating what you want, which is what you did in the last two. I know that my thoughts are clear and powerful around wellness. I know my body responds to those thoughts and those feelings. I always hold a state of love because I know my body responds to that with wellness, right? I love my body. I honor it. I take time with it. I listen to it. See, again, you're in relationship with your body. So if your body is your best friend or your soulmate, are you treating it with as much respect as you would treat them? Loving it unconditionally, spending time with it, honoring it, listening to it, being with it, going out and physically taking time with it, which in the case of the relationship with your body is exercise. Are you nurturing your relationship, which involves the food? It's so really easy when you understand all the concepts of creation, because once you get the concept, all creation is the same thing, whether it's relationships or money or success or health. It's all the same thing. The creation of it is all the same thing when you know how to do it.
Right. I love it when, we talk about in creation, it's just as easy to create or manifest a pencil as it is a Mercedes Benz or whatever that, it's all the same mechanics of creation. And I know we all have our beliefs that, well, it's harder to do this, but it's not really if you just go back to the basics.
Well, and as you believe, it will be delivered to you. So if the listeners don't take anything else away from this program, take that. As you believe, it will be delivered to you in your reality, in your life. So it's like the Matrix. If everybody's watched the Matrix, pick a door, any door. You can have the reality you want, but you have to choose it, commit to it, focus on it, feel love into it, and then take action around it and open that door.
Did you ever hear that story of the little red paperclip?
No, tell me.
It's beautiful, and I shared it with my students when I was teaching. And so this guy, I can't remember where he was, but I think he might have been from Canada. But you can easily Google it, I believe. And I think if you start looking up little red paperclip or something to that effect, but he had this idea that they used to play this game called Bigger and Better. And so you would take something and you would trade it up for something bigger and better. So he started with this little red paperclip. And so he put out on the internet that he wanted to trade somebody something for this paperclip. So he traded, the paperclip, I think, for this little pen that somebody had on their desk. And then he traded the pen for a coffee mug. And he kept trading up to bigger and better things. And so he ended up trading ultimately that little red paperclip for a house. Seriously. And it was just amazing. I think it was 17 trades was all it took, because, he, from these little things, then he traded up. And I think at one time he had like an original Kiss snow globe, which was really rare. And so he found this snow globe collector that really wanted it. And so he traded him something really awesome. I think at one time, somebody traded him like studio time for something else that he had. And then eventually he traded up to like this generator and this box truck. And then I think he eventually traded the box truck for this house that this builder had. And he needed a box truck, but he was a builder and he had this extra spec home or something. So it was amazing.
Wow.
I thought it was a perfect example of the power of the mind.
Yep. And allowing yourself to embrace the fact that there are all possibilities open out there for you.
Yes.
Your job is not to go, I don't know how this is going to manifest. I don't get it. I don't have a clue. That's not your job. Your job is to go, I'm creating this. I'm committed to creating this. Wow, let me feel the love and the excitement around having that. Universe, come in and partner with me now, and then take action. That's your job. That's our job.
Yeah, I always have to remind students, don't worry about the how, because your little mind, your conscious mind, is going to stop you the minute you start thinking about how it's going to happen. Your conscious mind will say, well, that's going to be impossible. So I say just exactly what you're saying, Dee, is just focus on the end. Let your subconscious mind, the universal principles of creation, figure out how it's going to get done. Because if this guy started thinking, well, how am I going to get a house for this paperclip? Because that was his ultimate goal, was to get a house. It never would have happened, because he would have been like, well, that's impossible.
Exactly.
You know?
Hey, I've got a great. Do we have enough time for a story? I don't know where we're at here.
We've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay, well, really quickly, I said I'm going to have a baby. 5 specialists in LA told me I would never have a baby. I said, well, God and I have a different plan. And it's going to be a little girl. It's going to be a little girl, and we're going to be best friends. And so I had to go to Australia to do a movie, and my handler there said, oh my God, we specialize in this down here. She took me for a test. He found a fibroid that 5 or 6 doctors here never found. I came back. By that time, they could do a laparoscopy. They took the thing out, and I got pregnant. But, it's like, so I just kept saying, I'm committed. I'm going to have this baby. And the universe said, well, you're going to have to go to Australia to figure this one out. So let's make a movie and we'll take her to Australia. Whatever I had to do, I did acupuncture, I drank their yucky tea, which I ended up liking. And whatever I had to do you understand? Whatever I had to do. And my daughter laughs all the time. She said, Mom, there were thousands of us hanging up out there. Yeah. And finally, I just said, all right, she's not giving up, I'll go. But, that's sometimes commitment pays off in a day. And sometimes you have to trade up for a few years, but you get what you want.
That's a beautiful story.
I love it. Yeah. And I think the timing is huge, because I think when people don't see something manifesting right away, they think, oh, well, I did something wrong and it's not going to happen, and they give up. So that's a great message to people, is don't give up. Sometimes things in the physical take some time. Details have to be worked out. And a lot of times we're not even ready to receive what we're asking for right away. So that's awesome story, Dee, and shows the power of our mind over what any doctor or medical person may tell us. We have
Yep. Oh, there's so many stories like that in the world.
Well,
yeah.
Thanks so much for being on with us today. This has been fabulous. I feel like the time went by too fast. So,
my gosh,
a whole other hour talking with you.
Well, we're going to have you on again, Dee, and tell people how they can get in touch with you.
My website is DeeWallace.com. If you just Google me, it'll take you to, where you can get on my website. Visit my show. It's amazing. It's free. You can talk to the channel about anything, and I do mean anything. And please come see us at this amazing weekend that we're doing in Florida, Reignite Your Life. They put on a weekend like it's just unbelievable. You're going to have so much fun and shift so much energy. So come on and join us, guys.
All right. Well, we've been on with Dee Wallace, so check her out. She has 5 books. She's also on Oneness Talk Radio with us, and her show Conscious Creation appears at 9 a.m. Pacific on Oneness Talk Radio, along with others. You've been listening to Spirit's Journey with Patrick and Catherine Andrews, and please check us out on Facebook and be sure to like our page. And goodbye for now.
See you next week.